Welcome back to the channel. This is part 2 of my Finding Forever story. During my early childhood days, I was associated in my family as having a good heart, and I used to be the crazy but outgoing type that read all the time, books of all kinds. But as you can see, that was the time that pictures were in books, if you noticed. The time where you would open up a book like Winnie the Pooh or Clifford the Big Red Dog, and you would see pages filled with color, pictures, and pictures while reading the somewhat entertaining book. Sometimes in my mind, I would wonder if the only reason why I read books as a child was because of the pictures on every page. So it's a good point that I'm reading this, because in fact, let me take note of it right there. Yeah, it's a good point that I'm reading this because I think about that all the time, because I became an art student when I went to college, and it just tied it in together. And then I started doing technology stuff. I know my head is kind of cut off, but I started getting into technology and stuff with using photography. In fact, based on what you're reading here, if you watched the last video, you'll notice I'm probably a little different spaces. It's because I'm using a different camera now. Look like I got like a half head right here, just hair there, but I will show you. But yeah, so continuing, my parents used to have to get me to put the book down because I couldn't stop reading. But now I hate books. The only things that I read are articles about technology, or the only things I read are articles about technology and new things like games and cell phones, the new stuff in the consumer electronics field. But back to my childhood, back in my childhood days, when we went to my cousin's house, they had those Lego Duplo blocks that you would build anything that your mind wants. For some reason, I found that so fascinating. And so one day, my aunt by the name of Sarah said, "I can't believe you're so creative on building stuff." That was I think when my family started saying that I should be an architect. I wrote this thing completely wrong. It sounds so wrong the way I wrote it, so I'm trying to correct it as I read. That was I think when my family started saying that I should be an architect. So from then on every birthday, my aunt would show me a magazine filled with Lego blocks or Legos, and she would always say, pick any set in the magazine and circle it. So literally, I had like a magazine that, in fact, where's the pencil? So I had a magazine, and I could literally like circle everything in it, she would pretty much get me whatever thing I circled. I could only pick one, so I was very limited. So that was pretty cool. And she said, pick anything and circle it. Those were my favorite days back then. I could ask for anything. I could ask for something and receive it for my birthday, guaranteed. But the thing that made me different from other kids was the fact that most kids for Christmas who asked for video games and toys, all I wanted for Christmas and for my birthday were Legos. And to this day, I even have more Legos up here, which I'll showcase later on. I have like a Bionicle, and the last thing I built, I don't know when, I think when I was a kid, like in middle school, is sitting up here just on my shelf, and it's like a little spaceship style thing. It's really colorful because I didn't care about color back then. Yeah. Every time someone would ask me what I wanted for any holiday, the first thing that popped up in my mind was Legos all the time. And believe it or not, to this date, I've never gotten a game device that was specifically for me. Everyone in my family has received one, except my sister, because she's a girl and never saw any need of it. So it's kind of wrong that I'm saying that, but that's what I wrote back then, so I'm just going to continue reading it now. She's a girl and never saw any need of it. But it felt great because for once in my life, things were going great. I had good grades, I read a lot, which my parents liked exceptionally, and got whatever I wanted, which pretty much was just Legos. Just having that feeling of satisfaction and choice with Legos was all I needed to be happy. But since then, things started going downward. So, as you know, this is where I cut it to move into the next section of my life, which is actually the early preteen years. So I broke it down to early preteen years, and after this thing doesn't freeze, I broke it down to early preteen years, and that's where I stopped writing the Finding Forever story. Like after the early preteen years, that's gonna actually be my that's gonna be the finale for my early Finding Forever story. But the early preteen years will continue in the next video. So if you like just people just narrating things like Audible style, then this should be the type of thing for you. So stay tuned. I don't know when the next video will be, the next Finding Forever story video will be, but I might put other blog posts in between them so I can separate them a little bit, or I might just do them back to back. I don't know. But yeah, so the next one, the early preteen years. Take care, everybody.